from the email that you. That's what I found here.
Last Tuesday, or
As I went back to check.
I don't even remember now. I stopped in to get a quart of the sauce. And she said, "Wait a minute,
I'm having trouble with my sync email,
Oh, really?
but I think it occurs every year in the middle of August because of new accounts.
Really?
Attributable to students.
Well, that could be.
So when the signs went up,
I saw that.
high-speed internet.
get longer, it's easier to line them up off of feeders. So like a portion of the parade goes by and then one comes off the left. You know what I mean? So it just kind of keeps feeding.
Good evening.
Because there are certain ways to line up a parade.
I call this meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. At the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia, duly called and held on the 12th day of August, 2019 at 6 p.m. in the Trustees Room, second floor, Village Hall, Fredonia, New York, and public notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given to the news media and conspicuously posted in one or more designated public locations in accordance with Section 104 of the Open Meetings Law. Okay, first part is to work through the workshop session. Start with the resolutions. Fire Department MBA, boot drive. Then we have a request from SUNY Fredonia Radio System for permission to hold annual Rock in the Commons. BLB Hospice Barbecue Chicken Dinner. Have the American Legion Bike Run, MDA, discussed that last time. Fire Department transfer to honor roll, hiring of a part-time police officer. We have some budget transfers. We have Recreation Department minivan purchase that we discussed last time, and about resolution. All right. And then we go to the Village Hall generator, and Rod is not here. So where we are is that they fixed the generator, but apparently the transfer switch is not working. This is not a permanent solution. I think you all got the email from Rod. So what you want to do?
Fix it.
Fix it? Makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah, in the meantime, though, is it not working because the transfer switch is not working?
The transfer switch is not working.
So
Yes,
it's
that's the
unusable at this,
problem. It's usable up to a point, but has manually to go, for somebody to go manually and turn it on or turn it off. I'm not exactly sure. I read the same email as you. That's
That's the way I understood it. It has to be manually switched.
that's what I understood
Right,
too.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Tony, would you have any information on this here?
Yeah, only what they have heard from the chief, and I talked to Beck Electric, they do have the old one band-aided, so it's somewhat operational, but when they went to utilize the old transfer switch, that was inoperable. So they are trying to find a comparable transfer switch that will work on that temporarily, because we've got one price in already for a replacement generator, we got another one being developed by another company. And until we get that other price back in, we're obviously waiting to see which way it's best to go.
I have a question.
But I think it is a manual, it's possible manually to be operated.
The transfer switch, being that that's inside the building, and will that be usable with the new generator?
That would be replaced with it.
So that would,
Yeah, part of the whole new system would be generator, gas lines, transfer switch, the whole.
okay, so the transfer switch that is the one that's only to be used with this current one?
Yes, and it's
Okay.
not operational right now.
And,
It transfers the power to the police department, so if you're looking to power up all of Village Hall, put a bigger
okay,
transfer switch in.
oh, I see, okay.
You're going
And
up to anywhere from 50 to 65 kilowatts.
so if later in time, if this is it repaired enough to go to one of our other
Yeah.
other locations?
Yeah, he's gonna go to DPW.
Okay, we'd be able to use that transfer switch,
Backup for fire hall.
this new transfer switch that would go with it then?
The temporary transfer? switch?
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Okay, that's,
Again, I'm not
good.
totally involved, the chief has pretty much been handling all the
That's my
details,
understanding.
Okay,
but we're trying to share as much
Well, then-
information as we can.
so it has to have one to go with it, yeah, okay, that's
We
good.
need a resolution to do that. To buy the switch, the transfer switch, the transfer switch. Yeah, all right. Okay. Do you have anything else that we need to discuss?
We have some discussion on North County Water District. We received
Yes.
another email on that. I
Mhm.
think the board needs to discuss which way we want to go.
Well, actually, I talked about it with Tony a little bit this morning and then with Jim, and I thought about it a little bit too. First of all, do we know for sure that it's legal for the, it's legal for the North County Water District to sell us water in an emergency while we have a contract with the city of Dunkirk? And they needed a contract from the city of Dunkirk, which I haven't read it yet.
Mayor, as far as I'm aware, in an emergency situation, we would be authorized to get water from North County Water District, yes.
Okay, so that's not a problem. So we were looking with Tony over there with the map quite a lot, and for my part, although I would like them to come here and explain everything, their engineers to come here and explain everything, I would propose to approach an engineer who is local or not, somebody who has a familiarity with the system of Fredonia and Dunkirk and maybe North County Water District, so to come and advise us, to talk to us, to see if we have any, what kind of benefits, if any, or what kind of side, downsides, if any. So we have somebody, because I'm not an engineer, no one here is an engineer, to somebody who will talk to us and answer our questions. But I would, at the same time, I would encourage to invite them, Clark Patterson and Lee, here to explain themselves the map and whatever they want to do. So that would be my,
Mayor, in the email, Kathy Tampio, their secretary, requested a copy of our contract with the
Yes.
city of Dunkirk. Is that something that we can readily give them?
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, we just got it, so we'll call tomorrow. Anne Marie, we can call tomorrow so they can get a copy of it, okay? It's quite big, it's quite a lot, it's a big envelope.
So when you were talking about the contracts, we have to make sure that we are not in conflict with our contract with the city of Dunkirk, providing them with emergency water, and they with us, and also with the city of Dunkirk and the North County Water District, correct?
That would be my understanding.
And it seemed like a previous email stated that they were looking into amending their contract with the city of Dunkirk, I believe. There was an email.
That's why a while ago, that's what they said. I don't know if
They-
anything happened to that effect.
We haven't heard any proof of that happening.
They came back and said they believed that their contract was sufficient currently, and I was discussing that with the city attorney, and then those discussions kind of evaporated. So if you're interested, I can reach out to him again.
I think that'd be super, this way we know one way or another.
I mean, the main question for us is, if you see the map, if you saw the map, according to this map, and I was thinking about it after you left, there are two tanks here, one by the new South Roberts Road and one on Route 20, by the village of Brockton in the town of Portland. And supposedly these are 500,000 gallons water storage tanks. And we were talking about, we need about 1 million, 1.2, 1.3 daily. Right, Chris? Yeah, so between the three of them, probably they will be able to cover that. The problem is, and I thought about it later, these tanks are not only for us. So they wouldn't be using them. So out of the 500,000 gallons each one, probably we can use 1/3, if that.
This is why, again, I would love one of the engineers that, and we know several that are extremely well versed in the Dunker, Fredonia system, they've been involved for years. I need somebody to look at this independently, I think, for our village's benefit, and do a model, a water model. Because Chris and I were talking too. Even though you got you have one 500,000 gallon tank, which is already built in Brockton, the one that was drained during that emergency. Another proposed 500,000 gallon tank. that went
That's
put on
proposed,
Miller
yes,
Road.
correct.
Dunkirk's tank in Benton Street was upgraded while I was there. That's a 1 million gallon tank. That's got all new pumping and SCADA and so forth. So my thinking, and I want clarity on this from someone, like Travis Lee or whomever. You've got the Benton Street tank would be the main feed to this new Miller Road tank. So that should be fine. But like you say, you've got a 500 being built, a 500 already built, and we would have to, God forbid, be pulling from them to take care of our needs. But there's also other people on that.
I mean, that's what I mean.
So that's why I don't know, and I need someone to look at this closely for us, to estimate what the actual draw would be and what we would potentially be able to get on a daily basis towards our use. I think that's a very important question. I mean, the idea of interconnecting dots and all,
It's-
groups, face value is a really good idea, as evidenced by the emergency they just had out in Brockton, where we had to use a temporary hose connection between 2 fire hydrants, Portland and Brockton. That's less than a stellar way to take care of an emergency, but it was something to be able to help that much.
Definitely, but as you know, we gave them water very willingly and happily. At the same time, we had to take care of ourselves. I mean, so the same thing with these 2 tanks.
Sure.
They're not there just to be our storage water.
That's absolutely.
Yes, so they're there for other people as well. So, which means the capacity that we can use out of that is not 1 million gallons by any stretch of imagination, so.
Well, they'll be cycling the tanks too, so they'll be up and down with the usage. If we had an emergency when it was half down one day or whatever, so there's gonna be an estimate there within water volume that's gonna be available on that end too, so.
Chris, I have a question. Those 12-inch lines from the water district that are supplying our line on 20, our line's only an 8-inch line, correct?
Yeah.
So we're not gonna be I mean, you can only draw so much through 8 inches anyhow, so this isn't like gonna be a stellar interconnect. It's just gonna be something to supplement the pressure, augment the, so, I mean, are we gonna be drawing 1 million gallons through 8-inch lines? Probably not.
That's the problem with the emergency last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, on Route 5. In phase 1 of the county district's plans on Route 5, they upgraded from an old 8-inch line on the north side of Route 5 from Dunkirk out. And they did put a new 16-inch line in out to the Portland tank and a new pump station. However, as Paul Snyder confirmed this when we were going through that whole thing, from the Portland line on Route 5, excuse me, from the pre-existing line on Route 5 at the Portland tank, going west, it's an 8-inch line. So there again, you have a choke point.
So that's why they couldn't provide enough, yeah.
It's more than 575.
So when their leak was a substantial leak, they couldn't meet the needs because of the leak. It was larger than,
Well,
it was larger than than the line feeding it, so that's what. So we have to have a different agreement in the contract with Dunkirk too? I mean, because Dunkirk is supposedly the sole supplier to the North County Water District, but clearly there's issues that, beyond what they
I don't think-
anticipated.
I
so
don't
that
think we
would-
have to have any kind of understanding with them. This is between them and North County and Water District and us and North County Water District, is that correct? Or we have-
That would be my understanding. We already have an agreement with the city of Dunkirk in terms of emergencies and things.
No,
No, but- Right, yeah, but I'm talking about with North County Water, because, yes, ours is specifically with Dunkirk, but when someone other than Dunkirk has an issue, which was, then we're supplying into the water district, but then Dunkirk has a sole supply to the water district. So we would have to they would have to give us relief on that in order to really, even though we did do it, there really wasn't any agreement on it.
Did we actually supply any water to the district, or
Approximately 30,000 gallons.
did we?
We did the hookup, and then Paul Snyder and the county were waiting for a portable 8-inch, I think it was 6 or 8-inch hydraulic pump to come in from Rochester to pump once they had the 2 hydrants connected. They needed a pump to get pressure to push more water out. Once they got the hydrants hooked up, Paul called me and said they found the leak. We canceled the pump order. And whatever we did feed them was just under minimal pressure. And it was estimated that we gave them 30,000 gallons, which they were greatly appreciative for. But it didn't really affect us. We were ready for it. We set limits on how much we would give them. And they were all okay with what we could give them without endangering our supply. But as it turned out, good fate happened to where they found the leak and were able to, take care of the one and the second leak.
Yeah.
But, as far as actual usage, they didn't use that much. It could have been a lot more.
Did the city of Dunkirk give us any authorization for that, or did you have any contact with the city of Dunkirk
The city of
during this?
Dunkirk was, everybody was talking to each other.
Okay, so
Paul
it was-
Snyder leaded normally when we have a problem like this, Paul and his people lead the effort and coordinate with all the players. And my history, and I think Chris would back me up, is when you get situations like that, whether it's Dunkirk, Fredonia, whomever, everybody just pitches in to make this thing go away, help each other.
Makes sense.
The engineers in Albany were involved too in it.
Yeah, that's right.
They were aware of it.
That's good. Good communication, thank you.
Yeah, everybody was trying to do whatever they could to help them.
Also, it was an emergency anyways.
Oh, absolutely.
That was a total emergency. When I spoke with Paul, it was a total emergency.
So these connections almost seem, something common sense, because it could have been utilized already. We just need to iron out the particulars.
My personal recommendation is that, yes, any connection, because right now, and I always found it interesting, you have 2 dead ends on Route 20. For whatever reason, whether it's political or no one could get together, or the ideologies, that's not my purview. But it always puzzled me as to why they never have connected the dots prior.
Right.
That's just my simple thought.
Right. So, are you okay with, finding somebody to give us an idea as to our end? And then, at the same time, arranging for Clark Pattinson and Lee to come over here and explain exactly what they want to.
I think that would be a good idea.
Yes?
Now,
All right.
They explained that they would be covering all the costs involved with this interconnection. Would they be willing to cover the costs involved with that, to cover us? Because the last time we dealt with North County Water District, it cost us a large amount of money to the village, and we didn't,
I don't see any kind of money that we have to spend.
well, if wouldn't engineering company require any kind of funding to come in
Well,
and speak to us about it?
I don't mean to spend thousands of dollars, probably, a couple of hours or something to that effect. I just feel that we have to cover ourselves.
Well, I
Because,
feel
you
we
know,
should too.
otherwise we're going to have to trust Clark Patterson and Lee. And I'm not saying not to trust them by no means. It's just, it's better if we have somebody from our side as well. I mean, it would be much more logical to have somebody in staff, like to work for us, an engineer to work for us, and we don't. So since we don't, we need somebody to.
Well, I do agree. I agree that we should have someone to represent us. But like I said, when they presented the idea of those two connections, they presented the idea that would be no cost to the village. And I'm just asking us, is this going to be presented now a cost? So.
Probably, yes. I mean, I can't imagine that they will pay for our engineer.
When you
Yeah, the mayor, I didn't get the email, but it was mentioned by Mr. Snyder, I believe, to the mayor, and I don't know if it was all the board, about his suggestion was to have our engineers review it.
That's right, that's,
We don't have an engineer. So
Right, we don't.
for one of the people that I'm thinking of that's that intimate with all of what's historically been going on and familiar with the systems, you're talking a few hours at best, I would think. They're already familiar with everything, because I call them all the time for opinions on things when I was retired relative to Dunkirk. I mean, they talk to me, we know each other, but I think that in an official capacity, something this important to represent the village and protect the village, I think it would be prudent just to bring them in, just to look at everything, the most recent offers or whatever's on the table, and get an opinion.
What engineering firm are you speaking of, Tony?
I'd rather not say right now, because there's several that are.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
but there are some.
but it doesn't matter who it is, but I think we need to have one of the several that are there that are extremely well versed on this historically.
Hiring a company of our choice, but then asking them to reimburse us for the cost, would not be reasonable? I don't know. It seems.
You could try. I don't know.
I mean,
I really don't see it 100% reasonable, because this is like, I don't know if I'm looking at it wrongly, but this is not, it's not only for their benefit.
No,
Supposedly it's for the benefit of us as well.
clearly, but they approached us with a no cost.
Yeah,
And I'm, you know,
for the
Tony-
construction. They did not approach us for everything, they approached us for the construction of the, I mean, it's up to you, but
Tony,
that's.
you weren't talking like a all-out study, just a few hours to
No,
review.
this thing's been studied to death.
Yeah,
for
so it's just a
25
matter
Yes, sure.
of an
It
engineer
absolutely has,
reviewing
and
that.
Just, this is to review this most recent proposal and to comply with Paul's statement regarding, he thinks we should have our engineer review it.
right, and well, they told us that
And then I think
the
we
first
should get them
time.
in here. Pardon?
Well, my point would be is they told us for years that had been studied to death, but then when we went through and had our company study it, at cost more than $100,000, that, you know, we realized that it wasn't the best fit for us at the time. But, and I understand that this seems like a great idea, but there is a cost involved, so I'm just asking about that.
How about if I find out how much the cost is and get back to you? Because obviously if it's an exuberant amount,
Yeah,
Yeah, like, for instance, when Tolman Engineer comes in and does any small work order, the board approves, it's usually an hourly charge. So it's not like, you have a $2 million project and it's 12% for engineering. I mean, this is there's a charge per hour for whoever's involved.
no, I agree, sitting here without knowing numbers, we can't decide on that, I understand
No,
that.
you should,
And if it
yeah.
comes out to be a very low amount, maybe that wouldn't be an issue, but.
Right.
So I think we should not
I think
sit
that-
here and
you
Yeah,
know,
discuss it without.
that's a great idea, just ask them
without
what they
knowing
charge
numbers.
per hour.
I can find out how much this thing is
Yeah.
going to cost and come back to you.
Mayor, would you at this point as well schedule then representatives from North County Water
Yes,
District to come in
Yes,
and meet
I
with us
think,
as
I
well?
think it's a good
I think
idea,
it's
yeah,
a Great idea.
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. Okay, very good. Now, we're going back to the fire department. We are down to 7 right now, firefighters. And we kept looking for a new list from civil service. New list is not available, and we don't even know when the news is going to be available. However, there is a school that starts in the beginning of September, and we were discussing this morning with the fire chief the possibility of hiring provisionally one of our local guys, one of our local firefighters. This specific person is taking an exam, the medic exam, pretty soon. And based on that, we'll hire him or not afterwards. Is that?
There's a couple of things.
I think it's very important actually to hire somebody right now, because next school is not until March, if I understand it. So I'm proposing that we hire, based on interview and based on all that, a firefighter.
It's a very short window. The academy starts September 3rd. We have to report.
Correct.
By the time we get through the civil service paperwork and pre-employment physical, that we're getting close.
So if we can hire that person at the next meeting, we make it. We can make it.
Probably would need a special meeting next week.
You need to go for,
Well, they need to be appointed before you can send them for physical through civil service.
yes.
And that's usually a week and a half time frame. It's crunching it to get them into the September class. Without that, we'll be running short probably right through this time next year. The next academy class will be in March, the city of Buffalo, and that'll run to the end of June. So we'll be approximately a year.
So I don't know what the board thinks about that, but I mean, we're supposed to have 9, we have 7, that includes him. As you saw in the last email, the transports are way up, and they don't seem to ease at any point.
I'd be willing to do it at a special meeting before the end of that week.
Oh, next week.
When do you have to have, before the end of next week, or?
It would be like the first part of next week, to advertise quickly. There's only like 3 other medics, 2 potential medics and 1 other that took the
So we could do it,
exam.
we could do it this next Monday, it'll be okay then?
Depending on their availability. They sit for their New York State exam Thursday evening in Rochester.
Okay, so we can have interviews on Friday, we can hire somebody on Monday. Is that,
Tentatively.
Ryan, do you have
Just for a quick
how's your
special meeting.
overtime budget? Is that being affected? Is that kind of,
Yes. With being down a
Being
position,
down, of course it will, yeah.
the extra time in regular, it all balances out at the end of the year. So it's within the budget, but you guys are working 56 hours a week every week and it's starting to drag on a little bit.
you've been able to utilize that one part-time gentleman?
Yeah, he's been scheduled 16 hours a week.
How many hours can he work a week, or
16.
16?
16, well, halftime would be 20 hours a week, but it's tough to
Right.
put a 4-hour shift in there around his other full-time jobs.
So doing day, 8-hour shifts?
Yeah, he's been doing two 8-hour shifts or a 16-hour shift, and then somebody's 24.
what do you think? Dr. Boris?
We need staff.
I agree. That's,
Is there any way we can get some of this information to us before the meeting, so we know who and you know?
Yes, as soon as I know all 4 of them,
Okay.
I'd like to interview a couple of people and put some names forward, and then you guys can help me to see.
An interview
have to
process is our interview.
so we have to advertise first. And then get the applications, and then there are not too many days in between.
It's pretty
Okay,
quick.
but I expect some people already know, and they will have.
It's very limited to, they would have had to have taken the civil service exam.
Yes,
If they didn't take it and others passed 2 months after their appointment, they would be terminated, based
Okay.
on not being in the civil
so
service.
it's not worth it for that.
There was, I know of two people that are in the medic class now and one additional paramedic that took the exam. And it's.
So can we advertise tomorrow morning?
Yes.
Okay. Let's do that.
It's kind of like looking for paramedics nowadays, and I'll compare it to looking for like a wastewater treatment plant operator. It's very limited, we all know who they are, and so there's not, I'd be very surprised if there was somebody on the list that we didn't know about.
But still, there's nothing we can do about that.
So the current list expired the 9th this month. It did not get an extension. Their civil service test was the end of April, I want to say the 27th. As of last Friday, the state did not know when they were going to be releasing those results back to the counties. And it's a Scantron form, so you would think it'd be easy to finish.
Mayor, who's on our committee for interview?
Dr. Barris and Lyndon.
Okay.
So, all right. Okay, let's do it tomorrow morning and take it from there, see if we have anybody, hopefully. All
I
right.
can get applications into the hands of those that I know of. Go from there.
We still have to advertise, correct? Or give only applications?
Right.
All right, let's do it.
Probably have Tom put it on the website and
Yes.
have him back by. Right, work.
Are we scheduling a meeting for next Monday?
Yep.
Most probably, yes.
And that has to be advertised by,
Is there a time
is
frame?
there a time frame for advertising the
There's a-
meeting?
72-hour.
Well, for application.
Special meeting. Well,
Special meeting
the
time frame?
application timeframe?
Do you have to post it for so long?
Ryan, for
No,
that
not
one,
special.
we'd have to call Francine in the morning, just to make sure.
Still, let's do it tomorrow morning and see where we are. Okay, very good. All right, is there anything else? Yes,
If I may, just a quick update, due to the rotten weather conditions predicted for tomorrow morning, the paving contractors working with us and the blacktop plant people preferred not to take a chance tomorrow, so we'll do it Wednesday and finish Thursday if need be. So we issued a new press release this afternoon to update people. I really wanted to get it done tomorrow, but it is what it is. And I'm just, gonna hope that the weather clears up for Wednesday and Thursday and be
Yep.
done with it.
Okay.
And we'll get some striping done to the college right away. I got people looking at that, getting prices. So, and please, if I may, everybody that cannot use Central Avenue during the paving to find alternate routes would be wonderful. We're gonna have Comet Signal Corporation, they're doing professional traffic control. But it's just so much better the less traffic there is. And speed and the safety of our workers and other workers is so crucial. So the more people can divert for a day, part of another day maybe, it would be so helpful to the whole project getting done quickly.
so for the whole village, the whole area, if you can please avoid Central Avenue while they're paving, that would be excellent.
If it doesn't work out where we can do it, if people aren't complying for whatever reason, then I might be forced to shut the avenue down, like I did for milling for the one afternoon. I don't want to do that. I'm planning to maintain
Sure.
two-way traffic all
Of
day
course.
long. It's laid out. So please, the more they can help, the better. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. You want some water? Are you okay? Okay. All right, let's move the meeting.
This portion of the meeting is for public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak once recognized shall stand and state their name and address. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes if speaking for themselves or 5 minutes if speaking on behalf of a group. I will ask the speakers to refrain from remarks that are in poor taste, slanderous, or not germane to any action taken or contemplated by the board.
Anybody? Mr. Ray.
Sam Guerrero, village resident. I'm here to discuss two items. One is the charges against trustee Britz, and the other is the unauthorized use of village money for the purchase of a vehicle. Trustee Britz has not asked me to come here tonight, and he's not a client of mine. I'd like that to be clear from the outset. I'm here tonight because I want to thank trustee Britz in public for having the courage to bring to our attention the unauthorized purchase and use of taxpayer money without prior board approval to purchase a pickup truck for the street department. This is apparently condoned by two elected officials, the mayor and the chairman of the finance committee, trustee Linden. Roger, you've taken a lot of unfair criticism from certain individuals because you were passionate about making sure our laws were obeyed and making it known in no uncertain terms. The criticism against you, in my opinion, was motivated in large part by the desire of certain individuals to deflect from the serious and real issue, unauthorized use of taxpayer money. These individuals criticize you, yet are silent on the issue of the village's unauthorized use of its money, the taxpayers' money. I want to first address the issue of alleged workplace violence, and then the main issue I will address, which is unauthorized use of taxpayer money. The village adopted a very brief workplace policy about 12 years ago. It was probably adopted during the course of labor negotiations with village unions. The policy is in general terms, so reference to the state requirements is necessary to determine the intent of the law and the specifics of the workplace violence. Although not exhaustive, the state of New York lists the following examples of workplace violence. And you can see from these examples what type of conduct the state is looking for from municipalities in defining and preventing workplace violence. One, that the state lists as an attempt or threat, whether verbal or physical, to inflict physical injury upon an employee. There's been no evidence presented of that. The second one is any intentional display of force which would give an employee reason to fear or expect bodily harm. No evidence presented of that. 3, intentional and wrongful physical contact with a person without his or her consent that entails some injury. No evidence of that. The 4th is stalking an employee with intent in causing fear or physical harm to the physical and safety of the employee. Has anyone heard or seen any evidence that any of the above or similar actions have occurred? If there is such evidence, why hasn't it been presented? Roger has a right to see the allegations made against him. He has not been given copies of the statements made against him, and I'd like to know why. From what I understand, it's alleged loud language that was used by trustee Britz at the street department. But it needs to be remembered that the First Amendment of our Constitution protects free speech and free expression. The First Amendment does not restrict speech to moderate levels of voice with certain decibels. Citizens in our country are free to raise their voice in anger, even if they feel necessary to do so. Some people think yelling and raising of voices is unprofessional, and in some cases it may be. But unprofessional conduct is subjective, and it certainly does not constitute workplace violence. Also, expressing anger does not in itself constitute workplace violence. A person can become angry with another person without being threatening or violent. However, some people will feel threatened simply if you raise your voice, but that's not workplace violence either. I don't condone the use of profane language. The use of profane language in the workplace, if there was any, does not by itself constitute workplace violence unless it is used in connection with the threat of violence. In any event, I don't believe Roger used any profane language. There's much subjectivity in determining what is and is not a threat of violence. Remember, the title of this law is workplace violence. Assume that Roger was upset and raised his voice in expressing his concern regarding unauthorized spending of taxpayer money. Should he be criticized and condemned for his passion in insisting on compliance with our village charter? Not my opinion. Roger was trying to do his job as a trustee under our charter. The charter states, and I quote, "It shall be the duty of the trustees to see that the officers of the village perform their duties faithfully and correctly." The real issue in all this is the use of taxpayer money without prior board approval, which is a serious violation of our village charter. The charter specifically requires that all monies shall be drawn, and I quote, "pursuant to a resolution of the Board of Trustees." That's the law. Finding a supposedly good deal for purchasing a truck is no excuse for violating our charter. Those critical of Roger are avoiding the real issue by not speaking out against the unauthorized use of village money. They're directing attention away from that issue by complaining about Roger's alleged conduct. Their silence on the issue of unauthorized use of taxpayer money and their failure to condemn it speaks volumes. Our Fredonia Charter is our Constitution. It's not a suggestion on operating our village, it's the law. Our charter, under our charter, the mayor has 3 functions: conduct the meetings, 2, vote in case of a tie of the village board, and 3, most importantly, the mayor has an obligation under the charter, and I quote, "to take care that all the laws relating to the village shall be faithfully executed." That would include the law requiring prior board approval on the use of taxpayer money. There are exceptions spelled out in the law, such as payment of utility bills, debt service, and improved wages, which don't apply here. I understand the mayor is contemplating reporting Roger's conduct to the Labor Department as workplace violence. In my opinion, that is defaming his good character. Village officials, however, could report to the New York State Comptroller the unauthorized use of taxpayers' money by village officials, which is a serious violation of our charter. Getting off on a totally different issue, I'm glad Central Avenue is being paved. Thank you, Superintendent Tony Cugino and your men for a very good job and a lot of hard work and very hot weather.
Thank you very much.
However, I did not see any resolution adopted by the Board of Trustees authorizing the paving of Central Avenue. Maybe I missed it, but Article 3 of our charter specifically permits only the Board of Trustees to make such decisions. Where is the village board resolution authorizing the pavement of Central Avenue? Informal discussions at workshops are not the same as board resolutions, which are presented at public meetings and where citizens can speak and ask questions before resolutions are adopted. I'm concerned our charter is not consistently adhered to, and this will only lead to conflicts and problems. I believe I'm up with my 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
You're up for about 10 minutes, but thank you. Anybody else from the public? So I close the public meeting, the public portion. And I was contemplating only talking about positive things today, only talking about Central Avenue, only talking about being able to help Brockton in their time of need, and how much that proves the point that we need a reservoir to be what it is. I was only going to talk about Central Avenue and how much I appreciate everybody's work, because although it's a broken street, you can drive through it and it's clean and it's not as you expect it to be. However, Mr. Dreyer being here, obviously, I have to talk about other things as well. First of all, Mr. Braids knows exactly who and what said against him. Yes, he did use profanity because there is a video. Number three, I understand the First Amendment very well. Nobody stopped him from talking, but the First Amendment does not protect the person who talks from the consequences, at least not in my knowledge. So if people did not come out to talk about specifically what they said, and if we didn't choose to show him who actually provided us with a statement, is because specifically he said, November is coming and everybody's going to see. That's a threat for retaliation. But you talked about the charter. And over the past year specifically, I have been accused quite a few times, specifically for not following the charter. And that was from before also. And for the most part, I kept my head down, I kept my eye on the ball, and I did nothing but the work that the people of the village, hired me to do. But I think this is high time for everyone in this room and in the village to find out, finally, who is following the charter and who has been ignoring the charter for 50 years at least. So I'm going to name my statement, Truth, Lies, and a Law That Never Was. Okay? Truth is complicated and difficult to explain, while lies are simple and require no explanation. To my knowledge, there are several laws that we need to follow to govern the village. We are required to follow the charter, as is our constitution, as well as several state laws. If something is covered by the charter, we follow the charter. If not, we go to state laws. For example, according to our charter, the Board of Trustees is the hiring and firing authority of the village. Although state law gives the mayor the power of appointment with the approval of the board, the charter supersedes state law, so we follow the charter. On the other hand, state village law assigns administrative duties to the mayor. Our charter is silent on the matter, so state law prevails. This is not my opinion, by the way. This comes directly from the local government handbook issued by the state of New York, according to which, since 1897, even charter villages are subjected to provisions of the state law that are not inconsistent with their charters. According to state law, the administrator can also be a non-elected person appointed by the board. In that case, the position has to be created via a local law that fixes the powers, duties, terms, and other details of the office. However, this is not a local law that can be enacted by the Board of Trustees. Since it constitutes transfer of power, it requires a direct vote by the people of the village, which is called a referendum. One would think this is easy. Well, not in Fredonia. In November of 1967, the Board of Trustees, under the direction, I believe, of your father, Mr. Sam Dreyo Sr., established via simple resolution the office of village administrator and named the clerk treasurer as such. However, and because in 1967 the board was not authorized by the charter to create the position, in doing so, the village stepped out of the boundaries of the charter, where it stayed for the next 10 years. The position of the administrator was repealed in its entirety in January of 1977, before being reestablished in September of the same year. This time, although again through a simple resolution, the wording was a little different and the creation of the position less obvious. Apparently aware of the fact that the charter never authorized transfer of power, the Board of Trustees, under the direction of Attorney Mr. Sam Dreo Jr., combined the two positions of village clerk and village treasurer into one. The new position was arbitrarily called village administrator. Just as before, though, neither act was authorized by the charter. So once again, and for the next 21 years, the village was moved outside the margins of the charter. It is worth noticing that because there was no local law enacted to create the position, the village was also kept outside the state village law. In fact, the word administrator never appeared in the charter until December of 2016. Right before he retired, Mr. Dreo very quietly pushed the local law through and amended the charter with no other explanation than to codify and clarify practices previously adopted and tighten some loose ends. I call it covering your tracks. Of course, there was no referendum involved, only a 6-day notice for public hearing and a special meeting right before Christmas. One small but very important detail. The title of the adopted law was a little different from the title of the proposed one. It contained 2 extra words, village administrator. Mr. Dreo defended his decision not to involve the public by saying that Fredonia is a charter village, so there is no need to follow state law, and that this is not a position of power, as all the power resides in the board. Well, let's see. To begin with, according to Home Rule law, although local governments have the power to adopt and amend local laws, this cannot be contrary to state constitution or any general law. As for being no transfer of power, the resolution said one thing, the practice was drastically different. So let's see. The former administrator repeatedly and in the presence of many called himself head of the heads. Number 2, the former administrator repeatedly and in the presence of many accused village employees of insubordination when they talked to me after talking to him, obviously believing that the mayor was his subordinate. Number 3, the former administrator repeatedly returned written requests from department heads when they were addressed to the mayor and board of trustees, demanding that they change that to the administrator and board of trustees. Number 4, the former administrator was the sole negotiator for all union contracts, which he co-signed with absolutely no authority. Number 5, the former administrator not only thought himself above the mayor, he thought himself above the board. Without asking, suggesting, discussing anything with the board, he made the decision to ignore the water and sewer contract with SUNY Fredonia and undercharge the college. That decision cost the village almost $300,000 in 2 years, and that was not a clerical error. According to the auditors, it was a deliberate act. Now, Mr. Briggs, you got very upset for $9,200. You're done right to know. It's because it's your job to protect the village and protect the money. How many times did you ask me about the $300,000? You knew about it. No, I know, nothing. And that goes for everyone. Furthermore, when the position of the fire chief, the career fire chief, was created, the former administrator changed the supervising authority on the civil service form from Board of Trustees to village administrator, saying that all department heads report to the administrator, not the board. And finally, the village is listed in the local government handbook as one of only 55 in the state that are run by administrator. Who gave him that information? And when was the referendum for the people of the village to decide that on themselves. It's obvious that somebody did not trust the people of the village and just went above them. So might I ask, which part of the charter am I not following? My administration has returned this village to the charter. The accusation to the opposite are unsubstantiated fabrications. I invite everyone to read the background material, which I can provide. To everything I said today, there is a background material. I will provide you with everything. Ask the questions that you need answers to, and come to your own conclusions. You don't even have to believe me. I inherited the fallout of a law that never was. I happily take responsibility, full responsibility, for everything that I have done, and challenge everyone to do the same. I believe that through these acts, the village was not served properly by the elected officials, because mayors after mayor after mayor went out and they campaigned about things that they could have done, and they were not allowed. So, as I said, in the end, we all need the same thing. We all want the same thing, to move forward, to move the village forward inside the parameters of our charter and the state law. And that's what I have done. For 50 years, the village was not following neither the charter nor the village law. And now, for the last year, we do. I will also ask the Board of Trustees to consider removing that law that was put in there without the proper, amendment to our charter that happened without any proper procedures. So that's my report. Mr. Linden.
Thank you so much. I agree with moving forward in a positive way, following the charter as you described. Thank you.
Mr. Russ.
I have no village business to discuss.
Mr. Briggs.
I just have one quick report. I've got $160 worth of cash I want to give to Ann for a trolley fund. It was a donation from the 8/3/19 presentation of the trolley during an event. Do you add that to your trolley fund? That's all I have.
Dr. Barris.
I would like to thank Street Superintendent Gugino for paving the southeast corner of the east parking lot. It's very smooth. I like it.
Next year, with the board's approval, as I got approval for this prior, I would like to do more with budgeted money and our manpower. It works wonderfully, the guys love doing it. And I think we all want to try and make these parking lots substantially better than what they are now. Residents and businessmen deserve it. And my goal is to try and put a better appearance on that whole area, because that's true helping economic development.
Truly.
At a very inexpensive cost.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Dutton.
I have a copy submitted to the board for the annual financial report for the year ended 5/31/19. This report will be submitted to the state within the next week or so. And just very briefly, it shows that overall, we've increased our fund balance by a little over $400,000. There's a list of the assets, the cash reconciliation, which ties in with the books. And it's a summarized report, and I will have a detailed report for you, which I usually give, which has to do with the budgets, the budget and the actual expended, which will tie into these numbers, revenue and expenditures. I have to make a comment. I'm guilty. It was me. Wasn't the mayor, wasn't the board. Tony had a chance to buy a truck. He came to the board and asked permission. It was an informal decision, but there were more than 2 board members here. Gave him the authority to go out and find a pickup truck, which he did. It was on auction. Brought it in. I okayed the PO, which I shouldn't have done at that time. Gave it to Lori. In the meantime, Mr. Mancuso came in unbeknownst to me, because I was in a different office, wanted his check. So, Mr. Linden was the what's your title?
Auditor.
He's the claims auditor. He okayed it, so Lori wrote the check. Sent it out, I handed it to him. I found out later that day that that happened, so I called Mr. Gugino and told him, now I could have done a couple of things, but I told him, knowing the board was gonna pass a resolution on Monday, to hold the truck, not to drive it, put it in the garage until Tuesday, until after the board's approved the resolution. So that's what happened. In the meantime, Mr. Britz came in and expressed his concern about wanting to know how this happened. I tried to explain it as I just did. There was no intent on anybody's part, and especially on mine, to violate the law. I could have stopped payment on the check, and that would have resolved it. This was on a Friday. So Monday, knowing, I guess I felt comfortable knowing that the board had authorized unofficially, but maybe it is official, I don't know, I'm not an attorney, the purchase of the vehicle. And a budget transfer was made to accomplish that. The money was in the budget, we took it from one equipment line into another. So that's what happened.
Thank you, sir.
I also
Thank you very
want
much.
to make a comment on these budget transfers, if I may. We have a bond issue due, and the opening, or the bond, the bidding will take place at the end of August. We have to have the official statement completed by Friday or Monday at the latest. So in reviewing the bond anticipation notes, it appeared that there were a couple of them. One was this fire vehicle, I'm sorry, it was a tractor, the street department, $57,000, which was already in the budget. It only had 2 years left. It didn't seem, in my opinion, to put that into a bond issue. So I'm suggesting that we take it out and we pay for it when the bond comes due, which is in August. The other item is the $80,000 for radios, which was authorized previously by a bond anticipation note, but we haven't borrowed the money yet. So rather than borrow it, I'm recommending that we take those 2 items and pay for it out of the general fund as a transfer, and they won't be included in the bond issue. The other item is, that you have before you, has to do with the purchase of a truck, not illegally, for the Parks Department. I'm suggesting, but it does require a budget transfer. So, suggesting we transfer the money out of the capital fund balance and into a line for the Parks Department vehicle. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Elgart?
Nothing, Senior Mayor, thank you.
Okay, let's go to resolutions. Oh, reports. I'm sorry. Yes.
Fredonia Fire Department report for the month of July 2019. Total fire, 3, no fire, 1, rescue and EMS, 141, hazardous conditions, no fire, 4, service call, 4, good intent call, 19, false alarm and false call, 12, for a total of 184. The Fredonia Police Department report for the month of July. Incidents reported 552. Fredonia Central School calls for service 0. Accidents 18, arrests reported 24, vehicle and traffic 28, parking tickets 5. The Village Justice Court report for the month of July 2019. Vehicle and traffic 69, criminal cases 33, village ordinances 16, ABC laws 4, a total of 122 cases. Total fines and surcharges, $7,791. Parking tickets, $1,015, for a total of $8,806. And that's it for reports.
Thank you very much. Correspondence was received from Tim Winters, Village of Fredonia firefighter, on behalf of the Fredonia Professional Firefighters Association, Local 2931, requesting permission to hold an MDA boot drive, August the 30th, 2019.
Resolved that the request of Tim Winters on behalf of the Fredonia Professional Firefighters Association, Local 2931, to hold an MDA boot drive on the corners of Temple Street and Church Street on August 30th, 2019 for approximately 8 hours is hereby approved.
I second the resolution.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Bridge.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Correspondence was received from Isabella Caleste, General Manager, Fredonia Radio System, requesting permission to use Barkey Common and the gazebo on Saturday, September the 21st, 2019, from 9 a.m. Will set up at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the annual Rockin' the Common charity event to benefit Roswell Park Cancer Institute of Buffalo.
Be it resolved that permission is hereby granted to Isabella Celeste, General Manager, Fredonia Radio Systems, to use Barker Common and the gazebo for annual Rockin' the Commons charity event to benefit Roswell Park Cancer Institute of Buffalo on Saturday, September 21st, 2019, from 9 a.m., set up 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and that Church Street between Temple Street and Park Place be closed for performers and Chevetta's Chicken Barbecue. Be it further resolved that the above use of the gazebo is subject to the direction of the Fredonia Police Department, and be it further resolved that this resolution is subject to the receipt of a certificate of insurance naming the Village of Fredonia as an individually insured in the amount of $1 million.
I'll second the resolution.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Bridge.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Correspondence was received from Luann Ellis on behalf of BLB Insurance Agency, requesting permission to use West Barkey Common and the closing of Church Street between Temple and Park for a chicken barbecue to benefit hospice on Saturday, October 19, 2019, from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m.
Be it resolved that the permission is hereby granted to Bagaloo Baggett Insurance for the use of West Barker Common and the closing of Church Street between Temple Street and Park Place, October 19th, 2019, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for a chicken barbecue to benefit hospice. And be it further resolved, this approval is subject to the direction of the Police Department and the receipt of a certificate of insurance in the amount of $1 million, naming the Village of Fredonia as additionally insured.
I second that motion.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Bridge.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Correspondence was received from Greg Frazita, American Legion Riders, for a motorcycle run benefiting the Muscular Dystrophy Association, requesting the village to provide an escort and parking on Route 20 in front of 47 West and a place to park 150 motorcycles on Saturday, August 31st, 2019.
Be it resolved that the request, Greg Frazita, American Legion Riders, to bag meters in front of 47 West Main Street and to close off Park Place Street north of Main Street from Forest Place to Temple Street, to bag meters on Center Street from Main Street to Church Street from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for a motorcycle run to benefit the Muscular Dystrophy Association along with a police escort on Saturday, August 31st, 2019 is hereby approved.
I second that.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Bridge.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Correspondence was received from the Secretary of the Fredonia Volunteer Fire Department to transfer the name of Russell A. Trump Jr. from the active roles to the honor roll.
Be it resolved that the Russell A. Trump Jr. is hereby transferred from active roles to the honor rolls of the Barker Hose Company effective immediately.
I second the resolution.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye. Be it resolved that Taylor M. Anderson of Gary, New York is hereby appointed to the position of part-time police officer effective immediately at a rate of pay of $16 per hour with no other benefits, subject to all civil service rules and regulations.
I second that.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Briggs. Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Be it resolved pursuant to Section 5-520 of the Village Law that the following schedule and budget transfer is hereby approved for $11,295 from the appropriated capital fund balance into the General Recreation Equipment Fund.
I second the resolution.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye. Be it resolved pursuant to Section 5-520 of the Village Law, the following schedule and budget transfer is hereby approved. Transfer to Capital Fund for street equipment, $57,000, and transfer to Capital Fund for fire equipment, $80,000, for a total of $137,000 from the general fund balance.
I second that.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Whereas the village requires a vehicle for use by the Fredonia Recreation Department, and whereas Schultz Resale Center has offered a 2013 Chrysler Town and Country at a cost of $11,295. Now therefore, be it resolved, the village board hereby authorizes the purchase of the aforementioned 2013 Chrysler Town and Country at a total cost not to exceed $11,295.
Second the motion?
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye. Be it resolved that the issuance of $400,000 in bonds of the Village of Fredonia, Chautauqua County, New York, be authorized to pay the cost of building improvements to the fire hall in and for said village.
I second that.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Can I have an adjournment?
If there is no further business, I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Thank you very much for coming.